Hello, this is Kugan Cassius, and welcome to Raw Podcast. This week it is Wales edition with probably, I don't know, where do you rank amongst the most famous people to ever come out of Wales? Gary Lockett.
Very, very low, I think. Very low. Well, unless it's you doing the ratings and doing the rankings.
My favourite people from Wales, should we do that? Right. So I'd say you're definitely in the top two.
Okay.
But do you know the problem is? I don't know who the first person is because there's a couple. Gavin's definitely one of them. Gavin Rees is definitely one of my favourite people from Wales. You're definitely in the top two. Both of you can. Okay. Yeah.
I'll go with that.
Yeah?
I'll go with that. Yeah, definitely. I'm happy with that.
Maybe John Hartson. Inside boxing, definitely double two.
Absolutely good. I'll settle for that, mate. That's a high honour for me.
Do you know that I've spent some time with this week because I don't always see you, but when we do see each other, it's like we're just laughing and we're just reliving old memories from yesteryear.
Hey, and people say I'm grumpy.
You're not grumpy, but I see like snippets in you sometimes, and I think to myself, like, you're very like you've got fixed ideas. You're an age, and I'm not far off your age. I'm 43. You're 47.
48.
Oh, you're 48.
Monday last week. Yeah.
Happy birthday.
Not happy. Getting older every year, man. It's fucking not happy. It's just birthday. You know, it's not a happy birthday, is it? So,
What I love about you is literally you're so straight down the middle, and you don't realise sometimes how straight you are. You are very black and white with stuff, and it sometimes comes across as quite comical. And I do want to relive your story you did tell us in the cab the other day about Costa Coffee, right? Of you going into Costa Coffee in Birmingham, and I was listening to you thinking, no disrespect, this story isn't even interesting. The fact that Gary's telling it, the way you're telling it, it was hilarious. So don't take offence to that. I was like, what's happened here? Is it all kicked off in there? But it was...
it's just a situation in the life of Gary Lockett. It's just, people making just something out of nothing. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's... Do you want me to tell the story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you want me to tell it again?
Absolutely. Because no one was in the cab apart from 3 or 4 of us. Go on.
Okay, so we're for those that watch this, we're in a hotel, and it's an airport hotel, so we're in the middle of nowhere, more or less. So anywhere we go, we have to drive. So I was a little bit peckish. I think it was yesterday, day before yesterday. I can't even remember. It was yesterday. No, day before yesterday. Sorry. So I'm a little bit peckish. Drove up trying to find somewhere, and I just saw Costa, so I fancied a coffee anyway. So I thought they do these like toasted sandwiches, don't they? It's Christmas time. Turkey and the trimmings, right? So there's a bag of crisps there, so I picked up the bag of crisps, and then I remember I got the Costa app, right? This is where the trouble, this is where it went downhill. So, she scanned it. What do you want? I said, flat white, please. Great. So I looked on, and it said, happy birthday, you have a free cake. Now, I haven't got a sweet tooth, but if it's there, I might as well take the opportunity. Do you understand what I'm saying, Cool? So I went, I've got a free cake. So she went, okay, just scan it. So I scanned it. And anyway, she's doing my coffee, and then she goes, it's just a discount you got, so you're going to have to pay for it. I said, pay what? Well, there's £1 off. I said, well, it's okay. She said, well, let me show you again. Sorry, can I see it again? I said, well, you've scanned it. Can I see it again? I said, yeah, but you've already seen it. She said, well, there's no voucher on there. There's no free. I said, yeah, because you've scanned it. You saw it yourself. And it just went round and round and round and round. I said, look, I wouldn't have had the cake anyway. It was just because it popped up. I don't even want it. Have it back. And it just went round and round in circles. And then the manager came up and said, look, he said, just have the cake. It's no problem at all. I said, I didn't want it in the first place. And it's just people make just something big out of nothing. It was. I wouldn't try and catch her for £2.70. It's £2.70. I got cash in my wallet. And I don't know, people might not find it funny, but it's just, you find it funny because you know me. And it's just going round in circles. And then I was in the right. I didn't want the cake in the first place. But she made a big deal out of it. And she saw it. It said, happy birthday, you have a free cake. Beep. And then it disappeared from the app. So, I don't know. It's, a lot of people might go, what's he talking about? But you find it funny, so that's why I explained the story.
I was in stitches listening to you tell the story because it was you telling it, and I was looking for some kind of like dramatic ending, and I was like, you've been around. I mean this respectfully as well. You've been around for a while. You've lived across a few generations of, which I have as well, from how things were 20 years ago when you would have been late 20s, etc., to now. And we spoke about this we were talking about this off camera as well yesterday in the cab, about how it is a changing world, Gary, in that you can't, what you could say 20 years ago, you can't say now. It's not even a case of what you could do 20 years ago, but just everything's changed. You've got to watch what you say, and you have to be a bit PC, etc. And I've noticed this in the last 10 years because I was looking at some old videos some of the videos, like even things that you would have said like 10 years ago,
4 years ago,
probably even that, that you can't do now.
You can't, and I mean, I'm very, very careful now everything I say because I'm old school. I'll say things meaning a joke, whereas I could probably get locked up for it today. But it's nothing against anybody. It's nothing personal. I don't have personal feelings strong feelings towards anything in particular. But you have to watch what you say because I mean, look at people getting locked up for things they're writing on Facebook and on Instagram. You know, that surely that goes against the rights of free speech, doesn't it? You know, look in America, it wouldn't happen in America. The free speech amendment is protected by the Second Amendment, of course. So, I mean, but it's I don't know if I should be saying this either, but you understand what I'm saying. It's just becoming so mad. But with Big Don T getting in, are things going to change over here as well as over there? Who knows?
Only time will tell.
I started boxing when I was 8. To answer the question, I was never really crazy about boxing. I think I started. My dad sort of sent me to the gym to sort of look after myself, and it just went from there. And it was never really my biggest love, and it was a funny career really because I was never really madly in love with boxing. But I think, you know, I had natural power, so I was stopping kids from like a young age, from about 14, and I think I found it pretty easy because I always trained hard. So I thought, you know, knockouts always come pretty simple to me, if you understand what I mean. Obviously, I had to work hard, and that's probably why it came simple to me, but I had that natural power. And that, you know, that sort of transferred over into the pros then, and it kind of suited the pros a little bit better. But then it got to a stage there where you can't just rely on power, you have to have a little bit of everything. I think that's why I just, come in a little bit short.
What was you interested in? If boxing wasn't your kind of main passion in life, and you had a very successful boxing career, a little bit underrated, if you ask me. Your career was underrated. Obviously, your last fight, you fell short to Pavlik, but you as a fighter, you were, in my opinion, a bit underrated.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's very kind of you. That's very kind of you.
No, I'm being honest. Obviously, I kind of followed the back end of your career, because I'm a little bit younger than you, but a little bit. 4 years. No. Yeah, 4. No, 5 years.
Don't look it though. Come on, let's be fair. You look older than me.
Absolutely. It's the grey. But yeah, I do feel like you were underrated. I think like you only suffered two losses in your career,
Yeah, 2 losses.
and you knocked out 80% of your opponents.
Probably more like 2/3. Like, no excuses. I think every fight is the same. If you waited to go in the ring when you were 100%, you'd never fight. So a lot of the time you had hand injuries and, chest infections and different things. So a lot of the time you fight, you're not really 100%. So a lot of the guys, sometimes I went the distance with people who I really should have stopped if I'd have been in better condition or if I hadn't had an injury or what have you. But it was good. It was probably more like, as I say, 2/3, 66, 67% of the stoppages. But in the amateurs, it was a lot more. I think I'd stopped 28 on the trot on one particular run. So yeah, I always had natural power. But again, Kugan, like I said, when you get to a certain level in the pros, you need the all-round game, and I just don't think I was ever patient enough. I was always a good boxer, I had good boxing skills, but the temptation to go out and flatten someone, get it over with quick, and get out of the ring, I think that far outweighed the temptation. Sorry, that far outweighs going in there, boxing nice behind your jab and letting the stoppage happen.
What was your thing then? Like, if it wasn't boxing, what was your thing?
I don't really know. Like, I've always been a big sports fan. I've always been a big sports. My two children very good at sports, and my wife, sports person, growing up as well. So we're a sporting family. So I've always been a big sporting fan, but numbers as well. So I'm now working in an accountancy and doing my exams to become so I'm an aspiring accountant, so to say. But I've been working in accountancy now for 2 years. So it's a very good balance, because sometimes I'm in the gym, like 2 days I do a little bit of personal training and stuff like that, just just to help a few people out, like MMA guys and different people like that. But then I'm in the office then for 3 days, and then I've got properties I rent out, so I've got a couple of income streams, and life's good. It's a good balance, and yeah.
What was like between the ages of, say, 14 and 19? What version of Gary Lockett was present at that point?
I think it was well brought up lad. Never too much trouble. Comes from my sort of solid parental background. Never in trouble with the police or anything like that. Happy, I suppose. Happy kid. Always stuck. Trained hard and was polite to people. Didn't do too good in school because I'm never really interested in school. But I think I was always going to turn pro, even though, like I always said, it was never my biggest love. But I always saw a career turning pro because I was doing so well in the amateurs, and I won no end of national titles. But the first national title came when I was sort of 15. When I was younger, I think I had a couple of decisions where could have gone either way. Maybe just lost out. I always lost on split decisions, and perhaps they could have gone either way. But then when I come 15, it was like I just got that bit of confidence, and I just flew on from there then and won everything.
If it wasn't boxing, what do you think it would have been for you?
It's tough, but something with numbers, I suppose. And I've always liked numbers, and probably property, and or real estate, as they call it.
Do you not think you would have been in some kind of other sports if it wasn't boxing?
Absolutely, yeah. I was a decent rugby player. I played county level rugby when I was about 14. My son followed on after me. He was a lot better than me, though. Back row forward, my son. So, yeah, it might have been, but I don't know. Maybe rugby, but I'm probably a little bit small these days for rugby. I'm 5'10". I used to be 5'10" until I shrunk to 5'9". So, yeah, maybe rugby. I don't know, but it might have been within sport, definitely, because I was always that kid in school where I was pretty good at most things. I wasn't brilliant at everything, but I was pretty good at most. I was a good sprinter and decent at rugby. I was crap at football, which doesn't explain why I'm a big Liverpool fan, but yeah, maybe you're right. Yeah, maybe some kind of sport.
Was you academically intelligent?
I think academically I wasn't bad, but I didn't work in school because, like I said, I always had that thing where, I'm going to turn pro anyway, type of thing, and I wasn't really pushed by my parents really to do. They were just very laid back. Dad was strict, but very laid back when it comes to things like that. So I didn't. I'm not stupid. I'm switched on, but academically, I didn't do too good in school. So.
But your parents, were they supportive of? You said you started boxing when you were 8 years old, so that's quite a relatively young age to start. Were they supportive of that at that point?
Absolutely. I think my dad was my biggest fan, and my dad was always very, very good coach. So he, there's a lot of dads do this. I started boxing for a club called Costa, and my dad, after about a year or two, he started coming back and forth, and he started taking the youngsters on the pants, and he was always very, very good with the youngsters, teaching them the basics, and people still talk to me about that now. So Dad was my biggest fan, and my mother's just old school, just wants a peaceful life, So she was obviously supportive, but any mother who loves her son boxing and getting hit in the face is a bit strange, isn't it? So she was very very nervous when I boxed, but she was always very supportive as well. Yeah.
Did she watch all your fights?
I think she just hid out in the kitchen until it was all over. So most of the time, I think I lost 8 out of, I think I had 98 amateurs and lost 8, and then 32 pros and lost 2. So didn't lose very often. But so most of the time, hiding out in the kitchen would be, it wouldn't be too bad because there'd be good news after. But no, yeah, they was supportive, definitely.
So, I mean, obviously your career stemmed for however long it did, and you retired, if I'm correct, back in 2008?
2008.
2008, yeah.
Research this morning.
No.
On Box Rec.
Do you think I've ever box wrecked you? I've never box wrecked you in my life. I just know when your fight with Kelly Padfield was. That's all.
You haven't box wrecked me?
I've never... Why would I have box wrecked you? Because the only reason I would have box wrecked you is if you were fighting and I wasn't familiar with you, and I might have had to check a couple of dates. But you're not fighting, and yeah.
Okay, I believe you. I do, I believe you.
I know when that fight was.
Yeah,
so
2008.
2008.
Yeah. Yeah, so turned pro, 96. Very start-stop. Chest complaint. I was out for 2 years with a chest complaint, and just different injuries, very start-stop. Turned pro with John Hyland. John Hyland had ITV at the time. So I can remember John Hyland saying there's only 2 guys that he wanted to sign from the amateurs. It was myself and Ricky Hatton. Ricky was a little bit younger than me. I think he was about 18 months younger than me. Ricky ended up going with Frank Warren a couple of years later, but I signed with John Hyland because he had ITV.
What a guy, by the way, John Hyland. What a guy.
Do you know, I bumped into John. Jay Harris boxed up in, it was lockdown, or around about that time, and Jay Harris boxed up in in Bolton. And I hadn't seen John since we parted ways, and I thought, shit. And we call him Shake Hands, right? Because John, he just shakes hands with everyone, doesn't he? And he walked past me, of course I had a mask on, and I took my mask off, and he went, Gaz, how are you doing? Oh, he was great, and I think we had a cup of tea today. He's tea belly as well, so we had a cup of tea for a couple of hours and caught up. I love John, absolutely. Yeah, but anyway, long story short, I turned pro with John. Bernie Eccleston then sued ITV, I believe, is what happened. So they pulled out of boxing, which left me boxing on small hall bills, and it worked for a while, and then I just wasn't boxing often enough, and I ended up signing with Matchroom then. And when it was Barry and it was John Wish and all the guys, and and then eventually ended up with Warren then. But one thing I will say about John Hyland, while they lost the TV, they always treated me brilliantly, absolutely brilliantly, and it was great. It was a good education because I moved away from home. I was training in Liverpool, and it taught me that little bit of independence and how to look after myself a little bit,
Do you know what? That funny story about John Hyland, this is a few years ago.
I see you smirking all the time. I was talking about John then, so I thought there was something
I've got a lot of time for John Hyland. And obviously, just one thing that comes to mind. My ex at the time was going to Liverpool on a night out, and I see John the week before, and I said, he's coming up there, so he's like, right, listen, leave it with me, blah, blah, blah. So he booked all their restaurants, sorted everything out, blah, 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 which obviously I was much appreciative of. And my ex's friend broke her heel, right? In the day, whatever happened, she was panicking over this thing. Broke her heel as in on the shoe. The heel of a shoe, right, yeah? Okay. Yeah? Yeah? Not a heel, not like an Achilles heel. So they're obviously in this situation. John's taken her to the nearest whatever shoe shop it was, bought her shoes for her, right? I was like, John, how much? He went, no, it's all right. We've sorted the problem out. I've got her new shoes. I was like, oh my Lord. But just because she was on the night out, I wasn't there. And yeah, it just made me laugh that
that's John.
He took her to the shop to get her shoes done, get new shoes. And I was like, listen. And,
absolutely, yeah. That's John. And, I haven't seen John since that I bumped into him in Bolton probably 4 years ago. If I phoned John now and asked him for anything, I'm pretty confident that he'd go, yeah, I'll take care of that. So yeah, it's John, a really, really good guy.
You said that you don't know what you want to do when you grow up, but
Yeah.
where do you see yourself in the next 10 years? What, you've been in boxing for so long, and you've had like a roster of fighters under your belt. Not everything's gone kind of the way you would have probably have hoped, but
Yeah, you know, there's just a few things that we're kind of, in Wales, we don't get many opportunities. So I got a good few people in the gym now where you go, if they could have a little bit of investment put into them by one of the big promoters, they could really do something. It's just so hard trying to build someone on small hall bills, because it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And whereas you used to, let's say 15 years ago, the ticket selling thing, whereas, you know, an opponent might cost £1,000. That £1,000 now has gone to £2,000. So everything's more or less doubled, especially in like 6-rounders. I heard someone the other day paid something like £3,200 for a 6-round foreign opponent, and upwards of that, you know, and nothing surprises me anymore. Obviously, the border control have put certain things up, which they do. The opponents have got up. The promoters are starting to ask for more money into the house now. So not only have you got to pay the opponents, which the costs are inflated, you're then having to put money into the house, and then what's left you go half off. And look, there's, even though you get, if you're a popular lad and you sell a lot of tickets, then you don't really know the sort of hardships of a fighter who doesn't sell tickets. And I've got kids who are just very nice kids. They might be just a little bit quiet, and they just don't really sell that many tickets. So it's hard to know what to do. You might get 2 or 3 wins, and then you have to put them in a fight. They might get an L on their record, they might lose a little bit of interest, but at the moment in Wales, the big promoters are not coming, so it's very, very, very hard to build fighters. But it's not been a lot different from that anyway. So I think the last time anybody really invested in Wales was Frank with Calzaghe, and he persevered and he kept coming and kept coming and kept coming. I think, you know, Eddie had Codina, Eddie put Gavin Rees and Buckland on a couple of times, and he had led cleverly Lee Selby, but they were never really regular bills, were they? So I think Eddie said something about the infrastructure in Wales is not the best, which is a shame. It's a massive shame, because we got a lot of talent down there, and you know, how did these guys build themselves without the big promoters?
I know initially when I spoke to you off camera, I said to you that I wanted to talk as less about boxing as possible, but when I'm talking to you more so, I'm kind of probably more realising that how boxing is such a big part of your life, and it has been, isn't it? You're like what I would regard as a proper boxing man.
I suppose, but
Yeah.
look, like we were talking about John Pegg earlier. I was speaking to John Pegg downstairs for about half. I think John Pegg is like, he's a 24-hour-a-day boxing man. I ain't. I'm not. I like. I've got my escape from it. You know, I'm a family man.
But you know you're boxing. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
You know you're boxing.
Of course, and most people do. If you've been in it for as long as you have, if you've boxed to a good level amateur, boxed to a good level pro, and then done it as a coach as well, of course you know boxing. You know, of course you do. But all I'm saying is I'm not. I'm able to step away from it. I'm not thinking about boxing all the time, which is what I like. You know, and some of these guys are. I know a guy, I won't mention any names, he's up in the morning at 5:30, he's in the gym at 6. He's in the gym at 6 in the morning till 8 at night. And he's still hanging around after 8 for about half an hour. And I said, how do you do that? And he said, I wouldn't have it any different, I love it. And his wife brings him, she brings him lunch to the gym. Wheels are unbelievable. I couldn't think of anything worse. But listen, that's what people like. We're all different. And I prefer not to be like that. I prefer to have a balance in my life where I'm able to dip in and out of boxing and dip in and out of the office, and obviously my family come first. So it's nice to have that balance.
How would you describe your relationship with Enzo?
Enzo, my relationship with Enzo, I think, know Enzo from a very young age. and I think we got on massively, absolutely, and you know, I followed Joe's journey from very, very young. I think Joe's about 4 years older than me, so followed his journey from very, very young, and I think it was very obvious that, you know, Joe won 3 ABA titles consecutively in different weights, and he beat some cracking fighters on the way. I mean, Dean Francis, Jason Matthews, I think Glenn Catley. I'm pretty sure he did. Yeah, I think I'm right when I say that. And it was pretty obvious when he turned pro that he was going to do massive things. And yeah, and my relationship with Enzo was very good.
Is boxing royalty in the like across boxing, but especially obviously in Wales, Joe and his late dad are like, you know, their place in Welsh sporting history is etched forever.
Absolutely, and you get a lot of guys, because I can remember Joe, I think someone convinced Joe to try a different trainer, and I'm pretty sure it was George Francis. And I think he travelled up and trained with George Francis. I'm not absolutely sure about that, but I'm pretty sure. He travelled up and trained with George Francis, and he said that it wasn't the same. And he went back with Enzo. I just think Enzo had some funny ways, and a lot of people said, "Oh, imagine Enzo was with like Joe was with like a Manuel Stewart or someone like that." And I always say to people now, listen, he wouldn't have been any better. Joe and Enzo went together like hand in glove, and their styles just gelled. And I mean, Joe's style was put into him by Enzo as he was growing up, and I don't think that Joe could have done any better with anybody else. And I just think they were dream partnership, weren't they? And that's not always the case with father and son, is it? So,
does Calzaghe, in your opinion, get the credit that he should have? He's obviously been retired for a while now, but I always look at Joe as a little bit underrated, and look at the people that Joe fought and kind of the career that he had. Does he get the credit that he should be getting?
In my experience, I think he does, because if you look at on social media, when people ask about the best British boxers of our generation, I think everybody always does say Calzaghe. There's this debate about Froch and Calzaghe, which keeps going on and on and on. But you know, he is probably the best British boxer of our generation. I can't think of anybody who you could rate above him. And you say he's underrated. I don't think he is underrated. I think people do actually realise what a great fighter that he was.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to choose my words carefully here, because I still think, as much as you're right, I think if you put a poll of over the last however many years, or even just the all-time greatest British fighter, Calzaghe would come in there. I still feel that Calzaghe is underrated. I don't know, something. Always feel like he should be more recognised for what he done more so than what he does. That's just what the point I was saying.
Joe was an incredible talent. You know, he was an incredible talent, and don't forget, you know, he went through that spell where he had a lot of injuries with his hands, and he had to pull out of quite a few fights. And I think people started to doubt him, and people started to say, he doesn't go out of Wales, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that. And then let's not forget the Jeff Lacey fight, which literally silenced everyone, and people just had to go, oh my God, this guy is incredible. And then he went on to beat Miguel Kessler and Bernard Hopkins, and people didn't realise what a great win the Bernard Hopkins one was at the time, because obviously the age of Bernard Hopkins, I think people thought he was on the slide, but then when Calzaghe beat him, look what he went on to achieve then for years and years and years after. The people that he beat, the resume was incredible. So, and then obviously the final fight against Roy Jones. Okay, you know, Roy Jones was over the hill, but you know, apart from, like I just said, apart from Lacey, Hopkins, Kessler, there was the Roy Jones one as well, and obviously Enzo then fought Enzo then fought Roy Jones then years later, and you know, a prime Roy Jones, as Enzo always says.
Yeah, that was an interesting fight. Yeah.
Next question.
Absolutely. Do you think anyone will ever replace Joe Calzaghe in Wales?
It's a big question, isn't it? You know, so you're saying, really, are we going to get another fighter of a generation from Wales?
But also, let me just double up on this. You could question for England, do we get anyone to replace Ricky Hatton? Because as much as obviously Joshua, etc., and Fury have taken the headlines for being heavyweights over the last 10 years, Ricky Hatton consistently was driving tens of thousands of people to Vegas.
Incredible.
Does anyone ever replace him in our generation? I don't know, because Joshua fought once. Obviously, Fury has fought in America, etc. But Ricky Hatton, that scope of who was coming to travel to see Ricky Hatton, that was different league.
I mean, the popularity for Ricky Hatton was just insane. And you just think, how did that happen? It was a lot to do with the piss, wasn't it? You know,
just the man on the street. Absolutely. Everyone related to him.
I heard a story where he's going around dropping tickets, right? So it might have been Paul Speak was waiting from outside. He's like, where's he gone? He went in the pub and he's having a pint with all the locals. He's only dropping tickets off. So it's just, you could understand how so many people just sort of, you know, just the working class hero, the boy next door, he'll have a pint with us and, oh yeah, let's go. Absolutely incredible. And whether someone like him comes along again, I don't really know. It's just, yeah, so does someone as good as Calzaghe come around again, or does someone as popular as Ricky Hatton come around again? I think both are highly doubtful.
Yeah, I mean, I
especially the way the world is now, like what you said earlier. Don't forget, everything's changing. Everything's changing all the time. The way you buy tickets now, right? Like, think of the cash thing. You can't buy anything in here cash. Matchroom give us cash the other day.
It's a changing world. We spoke about this. You can't go to a football stadium anymore without obviously giving cash at whatever. I go to Arsenal every week and it's all contactless. Everything is. It's a changing society.
It is a changing society, but it's worrying, isn't it? Because when you think of things like, like the tooth fairy, you got young kids and they hear about the tooth fairy. What happens when we haven't got any cash? What do you do? Like, I'll bank transfer. I think the tooth fairy just done a bank transfer for you.
It's so true, isn't it? It is true, isn't it?
You know, and what about pocket money? What about grandparents? Grandparents, like my daughter. My daughter's 12, my son's 18. So my daughter will see my father-in-law and he'll go, oh, there we are. There's a fiver or there's a tenner. What happens? Oh, what's your bank details? You know, where does it end? And I don't think it's too far away. You know, my wife looks at me like I'm bonkers, you know. I don't think we're too far away from a cashless society.
Gary Lockett's top 5 changes over the last 15 years in life. Do you reckon? You ain't got to do them in order.
Yeah, come on, like that takes a little bit of thinking, that. How long have you got?
No, things that you could, like 15 years ago compared to now. Could be anything.
I used to be able to drive to London, right, and not get a fine on the Tuesday morning, right? Every time I drive to London, right, I get a fucking £100 fine on the Tuesday morning. So I'll tell you a story, right? This is the joys of being a boxing trainer on small hall bills. So I had 2 guys fighting in the York Hall. So straight away, like, you're struggling with parking. So I paid, nothing, 10 quid to park, whatever it was, right? These guys had to pay so much into the bill, none of them earned a penny, right? So, what's it, 60, 70 quid fuel. Okay, I don't mind that, no problem. 60, 70 quid on the week. They both won, didn't earn a penny. I was like, okay, right. Drove back, Tuesday morning, £120 fine. Forgot to book the zone, what's it called, the congestion charge. Congestion charge. So I'm like, there's something really wrong happening here, right? You know, like, these guys, like, supposed to pay me to train them, right? And I'm the one ends up paying out of my arse 200 quid. So I had a good mind to go, right, boys, I've had this, it's half each, right? You're paying it, right? But no, these are the things you have to do as a trainer sometimes. Just John Pegg now is on the way down to London to work a kid's corner. And he said the kid's not getting paid anything, so he doesn't get paid anything. So we all do it. But when you get the bloody kick in the bollocks after it on the Tuesday, it's just, fuck my life. Do you know what I mean? Why am I doing this?
All right, well, look, yeah, listen, everyone's probably gone through the pain of congestion charge and not paying it in time.
And if it's not a congestion charge, you've drove down a bus lane, or you've drove where there's no right, and the cameras are on you. So that's one of them, okay?
You can come back to it at any point. You can come back to it at any point. We were talking...
Excuse me.
Go on, we were talking off camera about Roy Keane, and I'm a big fan of Roy Keane. I said to you, I wasn't when he was playing for United because of the whole Vieira thing.
I'm Liverpool.
Yeah, and yeah, well, yeah, same sort of thing. Like, I couldn't stand him as a player. He was a great player, but as a person, absolutely not. Now, as a pundit, I fucking love him. But he's very black and white, and he had that moment. We were talking about this as well. He had that moment on the Overlap show with Gary Neville, I think. Who else was Paul Scholes on it, Ian Wright and Jill Scott. And it was a comical moment that I'm glad didn't get taken out of context and kind of everyone having their, which people probably do have their say about it, but it was a comical moment that Jill Scott handled really well because she found it in jest as well, and it was kind of put out there as a comical moment rather than, you know, anything kind of taken out of what that context was.
Which was very, very surprising, because when I saw it, I went, how come they've put this out? First of all, props to Jill Scott, because she took it really, really well. And in a world of now, you've got so many feminists and you've got so many different people they've got an agenda and what have you. Just treat it as it is, right? It was a joke. Nobody's going to die. It's an absolute joke. It was meant in good spirits, and she took it well. And the reason that it wasn't blown out of proportion was because of the way that she took it. Can you imagine that she took it the wrong way? Roy Keane would never be on TV again, right? And I think that leads us really into what the question you just asked. What's changed from 15 years ago? 15 years ago, that just would have been laughed out of town, as it was anyway. But if it had been a different girl, I don't think there are many girls who would have took it like Jill Scott took it, put it that way. But it was absolutely brilliant, and everybody that program is just one of my favourite programs. It's absolutely brilliant.
I think so. And I love that. It's my favourite, actually, outside of anything to do with boxing. That is my favourite kind of show that centres around anything to do with football. And it's such a simplistic format with Roy Keane, Ian Wright, Gary Neville on the majority of them shows, and Jill Scott, obviously. But it's hilarious. And I think that the fact that it's just sitting there kind of having... This should be probably a boxing version of it, to be fair.
But what is it that with this world, like you said, you find me funny, without even me trying to be funny, just because of how straight I am. Yeah. But doesn't that show you the state the world is in? When I'm sorry, when I'm brazen enough to say something that I shouldn't probably say, and you laugh, right? You're just not used to it. But that's the way it should be, because I'm old school, and I grew up with an old school father, and who just basically said, "Look, don't worry about what people say. Just say what you think." Okay. You know, you can't really do that these days, but in this context, you can. But, like, you know, Roy Keane is just brilliant. That's why I love him so much. I hated him as a footballer because I'm a Liverpool fan, so he was Man United captain, whilst always appreciating what a good player he was. But, like, you know, he just says it, you know, like the one with the goalkeeper, isn't it? And I've always said this, right? I've always said this. He's a good shot stopper. I go, he's got gloves on. That's what he's in goal to do. That's his job. What the fuck are you talking about? He's a good shot stopper. If he's not a good shot stopper, then what is he good at? He can catch a ball. You know what? And it's just absolutely brilliant. That's his job. What are we talking about?
What would be regarded as dry humour? You've got dry humour, and Roy Keane has as well. And it's kind of like, yeah, they're not even trying to be funny, but they just are. So, yeah.
It's absolutely brilliant. And the one with... Well, he's got, he was manager of someone. It's such and such player. And he went, why wouldn't he be playing? He said, oh, well, his wife's just had a baby. He went, well, he hasn't had a baby, has he? And that's what I'd be like. Why aren't you in training? Oh, wife's had a baby. Well, where are you? You know, you haven't got the scars, have you? You know, Jesus Christ, turn up. Let's get to the gym. Do your job.
I'm just, I look at some of the interviews I used to do years ago, over like 10 years ago, or even probably shorter distance than that, probably like 6, 7 years ago. And I look at them and like with Fury, Billy Joe, kind of all these sometimes outspoken people, and I think I wouldn't even put these interviews out now. Like I wouldn't. So you're right. That time scale isn't probably as long as 10 years. It's probably about 6 years, 7 years max.
Absolutely. Yeah. And but think of this. Imagine in another 5 years. What we're doing now, and I mean, listen, all laughs aside, I mean, this is a very serious thing. The things that we're talking about now, they've just put that on the TV. They put it out, which is great. And the way that Jill acted was props to her again. They probably wouldn't even put that out in 5 years, because it's just going to get worse and worse and worse and worse. And unless we get like someone like a Donald Trump, Nigel Farage, who knows? Who knows? I don't really know. I'm not a politician. I haven't got a mind full of politics. But I mean, how much worse can it get? And people will go into politics. The very little I know. How can someone have do speeches and have a plan, and then they get in, they do the complete opposite? I thought I was going to be £9,200 better off because my son's in Loughborough Uni, and he promised to wipe out all the fees. So I'm like, I'm going to spend that £9,200 on, and then he put 3% on them. So he went to 9,308 or something. I can't remember what. Jesus Christ, I was fuming. But long story short.
Sorry, you do make me laugh. But yeah, no, I get your point on that. I get your point. You should do your own podcast. I don't know why you're coming on to mine. I think you should just do your own weekly podcast and just talk about the daily issues in life.
I'm the first one to say that. So one of the guys that I trained back home, Jack Shaw, we were talking about him yesterday. Jack Shaw was a Cage Warriors champion, and then he was in the UFC. He's had about 8 or 9 fights in the UFC, and I'm telling a story to I'm warning one of the boys about something one day, and I can't really say it on here because it's to do with his.
Don't get me cancelled as well.
Yeah, well, Jack Shaw's covering his face, and he said, "Fuck me, mate." He said, "You're brilliant." He said, "You should have your own podcast, Lockett's Marriage Guidance." Right? But I've been through a lot. I'm 48 years of age. I've been in many, relationships and what have you. And it's just, I'm a man of the world. So I was just merely telling this guy what to do with his relationship. He's a young pro, and the girl was giving him a little bit of shit. So I was telling him exactly how to go about it. And all the boys in the gym thought it was hilarious. And so you're not the first person to say that I should have my own podcast, but yeah.
All right, okay, randomly. Okay. Lockett's top 5 points for keeping a good relationship. If you can't do this off the cuff, come on. Okay. Yeah? Do you think you can do that? It hasn't got to be in a specific 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 order, but just Gary Lockett's top 5 tips of how to maintain a relationship.
I haven't got a top 5, okay. but what I will say is this. I think you see... How many times do you see a man who's in, he's always they're always arguing, and he's always treading on eggshells, and he's always got, he's trying to buy flowers or buy her chocolates or buy her this and buy her that to keep her happy. That's not for you, mate. What's so funny?
Sorry. It's not for you, mate. That's just thrown me. Go on, I agree, go on.
The signs are there. And I'm being serious now. So it should be easy, right? It should be easy. Why are you arguing? Why are you treading on eggshells? Everything you do, you're being shouted at. It's not for you, mate. It's as simple as that. So myself and I'm not perfect. I'm very happily married. I suppose I'm one of the few people I know that are very happily married. But it just seems to be easy with myself and my wife. She's very laid back. She's very understanding, and she's very supportive of what I do, as I am with her. She's a primary school teacher, but it's easy. And I think the only arguments we've ever had is regarding probably our children. But when we're on our own, we don't argue about anything. So it's supposed to be easy, isn't it? You're not supposed to be treading on eggshells and arguing over the slightest thing, or having a go at her. So I haven't got a top 5, but I just think anyone who's not in a relationship where it should be easy most of the time. It's probably not. You're probably not suited for each other.
Is it a
I
50-50?
can't believe I've just been asked to give advice on relationships.
1 minute we're talking about Joe Calzaghe, right? And then we're talking about... It's because you mentioned your expertise in this department.
Expertise. I don't know about that. Jesus Christ, expertise.
All right, well, look, the last thing I do want to talk to you about is this. I didn't even know this story until you told me yesterday. Was about Shannon Briggs. Can we tell this story about Shannon Briggs? Sorry, you're right. Right, you tell the story.
If Frank Warren watches it, I don't know if he'll remember it.
Yeah,
if he's forgotten about it, but this would jog his memory, because Dennis Gilmartin told me about it, right? So we're in it's a Calzaghe Hopkins. So we're in this big auditorium for the weigh-in. So there's about 2,000 Welsh fans there. So I'm in amongst them. I'm there as a fan. I'm not there as a boxer. I'm there as a fan and what have you. So I'm in the middle of all these Welsh fans, and so there's lots of famous people in the auditorium. I think there was Zab Judah and different guys. So I think it was either Jimmy Lennon Jr. or Michael Buff. I can't remember, right? I think I had a few. So they're announcing, they're going, right, so up onto the stage, please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the former IBF welterweight champion, Zab Judah. Yay! And he goes up to the stage. And ladies and gentlemen, the former IBF lightweight champion, Mr. Greg Haugen, and he fought Chavez, whatever. Yeah. So, so then they go, ladies and gentlemen, the former WBO heavyweight champion, Mr. Shannon Briggs, of course, right? It was back in the day where Shannon Briggs was wearing his hair up, so he had dreadlocks, and he's wearing it up there, boom. So I said to you yesterday, do you know, remember Jason Lee, who used to play for Nottingham Forest?
I knew straight away, yeah.
Right. So all the fans used to sing him, he's got a pineapple on his head. So Shannon Briggs stands up, right? So I hear this one Welsh guy go, he's got a pineapple on his head. Then there's 5 people singing it. Then there's 20 people singing it. Then there's 100 people singing it. And then there's 2,000 fucking fans singing it. Shannon Briggs, he's got a pineapple on his head. Now, he don't know what has hit him now. He's walking up the stage, he's going, what the fuck, what, right? So we're all laughing at that. So years and years later, I'm speaking to Dennis Gilmartin, right, who works for the Border Control, right? So he went, yeah, he said, of course, I was working for Frank then. Yeah. He says, we're up on the stage. He said, we're stood with Don King. So Don King doesn't understand the humour. He's going, what they singing, Frank? And he's going, oh, Don, don't, you won't understand. And he's going, what? A fucking pineapple, Frank? And he's going, Don, don't, you don't understand. But Frank, what is it? So you could just imagine Don King saying that, can't you? With just not understanding British humour, not knowing who Jason Lee is, and not understanding the chant. It was just incredible. When you're a boxing person and you know who Jason Lee was, it was just so funny.
There will be a lot of people out there of our kind of age bracket and younger or older.
Briggs just didn't get it. He didn't get it.
He's not going to get it. But I remember, obviously, Shannon Briggs had golden, almost blonde, gingery, dreadlocks, and I could just picture it now. Without even being there, I could picture it, and I could picture the chant of people actually starting it and it getting bigger.
Oh, it just got louder and louder. And there was 2,000 Welsh. It wasn't just the Welsh fans; it was all the fans who understand what it is. You know what I mean? It's mostly British fans, so Welsh fans, English fans, they're all singing. It was about bloody 2, 3, 4, 5,000 singing it, and he was just like, what's going on?
Well, we were talking about it. I said to you what's actually happened to Jason Lee. I've not really heard anything from him since his playing days.
I think you were going to try and find out, weren't you?
If anyone knows where Jason Lee is, or if Jason Lee happens to be a big Gary Lockett fan, or watches an IFL, you never know. Listen, or he watches IFL TV. Jason Lee, if you'd like to get in touch with IFL TV, it would be great to see where you are now.
Just let us know what you're doing and what you've done after football. Are you coaching or still giving, perhaps giving back to the football youth of today?
Yeah, I thought you were going to say the fruit industry then.
Fruit.
Jason Lee, absolute legend. Yeah, former Forest player. Gary Lockett, much appreciate your time. This has been probably, I've done like 60 of these. This has been the most random and scattered one. Like I said, we were talking about putting the worlds to right in the first 5 minutes. Then we kind of came on to a little bit about your boxing career. Then we talked about Joe, and then we've talked about cashless society, and now we're talking about Jason Lee. It's the most random assortment of subjects. It's almost, very scattered, but I've loved it. Yeah.
The great Don King. And Frank Warren must have thought, I'm not going to try and explain this. I'd love to ask Frank about it, though.
I think next time I speak to Frank, I might even, I might play him this back. Yeah.
He will almost certainly remember that. I don't think you could forget that, could you?
Yeah.
You know, because it's just good British humour, and then Americans just would never understand it. Of course they wouldn't. Even if they know the details, they probably still wouldn't find it funny, you know, because it's just different. It's a different humour, isn't it? But.
All right, Gary, listen, much appreciate your time, and we'll definitely catch up with you again soon. And it's been great, kind of catching up. But I think you should definitely do your own thing. I think it'll be very, it'll be kind of in the Ricky Gervais kind of humour, I think.
There's another guy I'm a big fan of.
I'm a massive fan of Ricky Gervais.
Absolutely, absolutely. And my wife sent me something this morning, and he said. He's gone. I'm at the, and it's boxing related. So he's at the Calzaghe. It's either Calzaghe Hopkins or Calzaghe Jones, right? And he goes, I go into the toilet. He said, "Is everyone's there? Loads of celebrities and stuff." I go in the toilet. He said, I got my dick in my hand, right, having a pee in the urinal, and some guy goes, "Hey, Ricky, can I have a selfie?" And he goes, "What?" And he said the guy leans over him and takes a selfie while he's having a piss. People are shameless.
I think I've seen that.
People are shameless, mate. Isn't it? It's just incredible. And people are completely inconsiderate of other people, isn't they? You should see the parking yesterday. Do you see? I'm parked, right? And I went to the car to try and get something out of the glove box. And some BMW had reversed up, so his wheel was on the line, so I couldn't get into my driver's side. So do you know what I did? I didn't even bother. I was going to go out, and I didn't even bother because I couldn't be bothered with the hassle. I was going to go to reception and complain, and I thought, I can't be bothered. Just leave it there. So I just went back up to the fucking nightmare. It's just inconsiderate people. Just like parking in two spaces. Don't that wound you up?
It does, but I'm laughing because it's just you. It's you telling the story. It's like the Costa coffee and now the parking space. Honestly, you're very...
People were late as well. Like you were late earlier.
No. Hold on a minute. We said 12 o'clock, and then I did change it this morning to 12:30, which we agreed to. So technically,
you said, give me 15 minutes, and you were about 20. So, I'll lay you off. But if we got an appointment at like 12 o'clock, and you turn up at 12:10, that's completely inconsiderate. Unless something gets in the way, which is, you should be on time, shouldn't you? Really, let's be fair.
Gary Lockett, thank you very much for coming onto the Raw Podcast. Guys, we will speak to you, hear from you next week. Gary Lockett, it's been a pleasure, and we'll definitely catch up again soon.
Absolute pleasure, my friend.
Oh.
Top man.
I wasn't fucking late either.